Okay, thank you very much for that video. Wow, that's just a pair of couples who have been 51 years together sharing their insights. And it's interesting to see that 1 years and the love is as though still fresh, which I believe we can all achieve the same, given the fact that we are even Muslims. We have all that it takes as far as Islam has taught us to be able to pull off and be the best of men in our marriages and pull off the best of marriages. I hope we have picked one or two lessons from that video as we set to move on to the next session. And the next session is just for us to take some feedbacks. We are given a challenge, or we are all challenged yesterday. Abbasit, I would love if you can put up the challenge on the screen. Yeah, the challenge was for us to write a heartfelt love letter poem expressing our appreciation to our spouse. We should focus on specific qualities that we admire and memories we cherish. We should share the difference this brings to our marriage during today's session. So I would love to first confirm, as I expect that we all should have done this, should have taken up this challenge. So can you please signify if you did implemented this challenge? Give a moment for that, maybe the next 30 seconds. Let's signify, please. Okay. I see somebody raising hand. Okay, I still have only one hand up. Okay, yeah. 2 now. 3. Okay, 4. Okay. Yeah, I can see a couple of hands up now. Let the hand keep coming. Good. I am expecting that a good percentage of us would have done that assignment or would have implemented that challenge. So the numbers of hands up are still limited, just about 7. Okay, so while others are probably just getting set to raise their hands, so to speak. Okay, I have 8 now. I would just move on. Please do raise your hand. Keep raising your hands if you have done that assignment or if you have done that challenge. So I would love to hear the difference. I mean, we should share our thoughts as to how this, the difference this has brought about in our marriages, just between that yesterday and today. What was the expression like? Okay, some people are still single. I can see that. It's fine. So I believe those that are married would please signify if they do implemented the challenge as we have on the screen. Okay, so I will start with in no particular order. I have Rauf Hassan here. Can you please share your thoughts? What happened? After doing this challenge, is there anything spectacular, anything different between that moment when you sent the letter until date or till now? Rauf Hassan, please, are you on the call? Can you please unmute and speak? Just 1 minute, share your thoughts.
No, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So I actually, in fact, we went out together before that, and I almost forgot. So I wrote it in a sheet of my diary. I cut it out, and I wrote the note. Then at the back, I drew like a love logo. Then I kept it in a safe. I know that she would definitely go to that night. That was last night. So and we were in the sitting room together. In fact, she never expected it. So when she got in, she just opened the safe. I knew she was going there already. So I had to quickly cover myself up so that I wouldn't, I pretended as if I don't know what's happening. So she just kept mute for long. I said that, hi. So she was reading. She just came back to the sitting room and looked at me. She was actually, speechless for some moment. I knew like the message got into her completely because that was the least thing she expected. Like I must confess. In fact, she told
Wow.
me after that now, when last did I write a note for her? Like it's what she does in the past. But she said she cannot even remember if I've ever done something like that. I told her I've done it before now. He said no, she cannot remember. Like till this moment, in fact, I cannot even count the number of food I've been eating since yesterday now.
Wow, how interesting. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. That's a
All
wonderful
right.
one.
Now,
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so I'll take I can see Saeed or Layemi. Can you please unmute and share your thoughts? What was it like? What happened? Saeed or Layemi, are you on the call, please? Okay, perhaps I take someone else at the time. Rashid Adebayo. Okay, yes, please, you can go on, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, I live at a place different from where my wife is living. So it's just a form of message and a WhatsApp message. I did that in the night and I switched off my phone to reserve my battery for today. So, but in the midnight when I checked, she has dropped a flower for me, appreciating the message. I switched
Uh-huh.
off my phone again, but when we were to start this program, she was the first to call, smiling and wanting to know how I feel. So I think that's just the brief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. That's an interesting one indeed. I want to take about three more persons, and if time permit thereafter, I'll take more. Otherwise, that will be all. Okay, I can see Sheriff Shekoni. Can you please unmute and share your thoughts?
Now, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Now, alhamdulillah, being one of the youngest couple in town, I mean, um, one of the new groom as far as Lagos is concerned, and as far as this program is concerned, I tried my best possible to do the challenge, and I just got the response this morning. In fact, I'm still getting the response. I've been served different delicacies. I never knew this was how marriage seems to be. But I give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me the love of life and for accepting my prayer towards the kind of woman I want. So Alhamdulillah, that's just what I have to say. So you can come and join me if you don't mind. Taking the delicious and delicate. Jazakumullah khairan.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, Yakub, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a wonderful experience there. Okay, I have Abdulwasin Odenride. Yeah, Abdulwasin Odenride, your hand is up. Can you share your thoughts? Can see so many people putting down their hands now. Okay, Abdulwasin Odenride. Wa alaikum
No,
salam. Wa alaikum salam.
all right. No, so on my part, he actually knew about the challenge because like we were into the program together, and she keeps reminding me throughout yesterday. But I was unable to do it on the yesterday. I didn't. When she asked me, I would just tell her I would do it. I would do it. So I did it, and I dropped it on our WhatsApp page. So she didn't on her data until after some times. And when she on her data and she saw the message, she was like, wow. So you eventually did this. And she was surprised and she read it to my hair actually. And she was appreciative of the message.
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful one. I think there's something unique to pick there. She was there. She even knew about the challenge, and yet she expected it to be implemented, and still, I mean, gave it the appreciation and all, despite the fact that she already knew this was coming. So, I mean, the lesson there is sometimes it's not just surprises. that brings on expected appreciation, even sometimes. Sorry, can we please mute ourselves if we are not called to talk? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's really been nice to see that many of I can still see Saeed Olayemi's hands up. I can take you as the final person in this session. If you are able to unmute yourself now. Saeed Olayemi, can you please unmute and share your thoughts?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, sorry. I was quickly doing something, so I was far away from the phone while calling. Sorry for that delay. Well, my experience was equally fine. I did that while I was away from home at my site. I did that before coming home late yesterday night. I did around 7 p.m. after movie. And I got home late around 11 p.m. So when I got home, I could see the reaction, the calmness, and the expression of love and affection, and hence, though non-communicable amongst the children, the one we got it very closely, she was expressing that, and you see that from the pampering, the cuddling, the show of appreciation, so to speak. I think it really worked like a magic.
Now, Moyakum, thank you very much. I do want to believe that it's the same for everyone who did that challenge. We obviously would have been met with some form of appreciation, surprise, and all. I don't know if there's anyone who met the otherwise, or perhaps you didn't have any sort of interesting reaction to that message or to that letter. I'll be willing to take such a person to share his thoughts. Staying on the agenda, I just want to further advise that we should not stop this kind of love message, letters, poem expressions at expected times, at unexpected times. They are part of what had glamour and makes marriage really interesting. Okay, so and they are part of ways through which we can become best of men. Thank you. So the next thing on the agenda is for us to have a brief lecture, after which we will now go to the panel session. The topic of our discourse at this point in time is married men, a case study of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have on the call a seasoned scholar and an erudite teacher, someone that we all have at one point or the other benefited from his fountain of knowledge. The Chief Executive Director of Hajj Mabrur Ventures Limited in the press there to take us through the discussion within the next 20 minutes. I would love to hear from you, sir.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. I don't know, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yes, sir, that's possible. Ambassador, please.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me see if I can. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I will thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of incomparable majesty, who had showered us with the blessings of Al-Islam. We testify to the oneness of Allah and to the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower his mercy and blessings on him, his household, his companions, and those that tread their footsteps to the day of resurrection. Allahumma ameen. I will thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to be able to share knowledge with ourselves, learn and develop ourselves. Learning about our lives and things that revolve around us is one of the cardinal principles of Islam. At every point in time, Muhammad Sallallahu informed us, said, continue to seek knowledge that will be beneficial to you right from cradle to death. It's an instruction, it's an obligation. So pray all that we learn in all the different sessions, and that will make it beneficial to us. So quick one, the topic we want to look at is Muhammad, a shining example of the best of men. Just like we are gathered, a lot of marriages that we're engaging, we are all involved, we are couples. At every point in time, we're always searching for a way to make our marriages work. So how should the husband relate with the wife? How should the wife relate with the husband? How should we maintain a healthy marriage? These are things that we constantly seek for to improve ourselves. However, a lot of people assume that it is something that is totally out of Islam. It is a novel thing for us to be able to learn these things. But the fact is that for us as Muslims, for everything we want to do, Allah has given us a model. And that's why Allah said in the Quran Kareem that we have given you a model in the life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He is a model for you. For those who desire to get the favor of Allah, to get the pleasure of Allah, and then desire to be able to meet Allah on the day of resurrection with the best of deeds. So Muhammad is a messenger, is a model for us. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah also said that Allah arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alamin. We have not raised you except to be a source of mercy to the whole world. So, which means that for us as Muslims, every aspect of our lives, there's always something to get there. And brothers now always say, no matter what happened to you, he said, take consolation in me. Look at my life. You will see an example that will be very clear there, that tells you how you are supposed to go for it and what you are going to get. So that is what Allah has given us. So it means it's actually, no matter what we learn, we will be able to relate it back clearly to the life of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Allah raised him as a prophet, and he played a lot of roles, right from his youth till his death at the age of 63. But one that is so unique, despite all the schedules, all the tasks Allah has given him to run the state, to guide people, to be at the forefront, to be in the battlefront, one unique role there was the role as a husband, which is clear that he really gave us examples. So we are going to look at some of the shining examples that clarify things that we need to see, so that at the end of the day, we'll continue to see him as a model, and we'll continue to strive towards doing as much as he had done. But before we look at that, let's look at Brother Islam and his wives. To tell you, because when you do anything, one of the ways you can prove that what you have done is actually right is to get the testimony from those with whom you have dealt with, you have related with. And so as a husband, Brother Islam related with his wives. What was the testimonies we could get? What are the practical manifestations we see in the lives of the wives of Islam? So one thing you observe is that he personified the role of a perfect father and a perfect husband. Because that is where Allah has created, that's where he had related with it. And an example is that the scholars will tell us that all the wives of Prophet Salam, whenever they are separated from the Prophet Salam, they see it as losing something, especially when the Prophet Salam died. That separation was a big loss to them. They felt it so much, and it showed in their disposition. And there is no reason for that because of how he had established himself firmly in their hearts. And that's why they were crying. There was a day Abu Bakr came in after the death of Salam and saw all the wives. The normal thing, people die, they lose people at that time, but the tears were dropping from the eyes of the wives of the Prophet. They were in grief, so much beyond what all other companions would have imagined. Because people died on that time, we have companions who have died, people will lose them, they will go on with their lives. But the way the Mu'atul Mu'minin, the wife of Islam, did was quite different. And Abu Bakr said he was astonished at that. And that is one of the manifestations that actually brings out what Prophet Islam was to his wives. So now let's look at some scenarios or practical examples. I just give some of them as just a guide to give us a glimpse, a bit better glimpse of how the Prophet Islam was with his wives. The first one was the level of his kindness and gentleness. The Prophet Islam was very kind and was very gentle with his wives. He related with them with the highest level of kindness you could have thought of. There was a narration by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and I know that there was a day Umar said he went to the Prophet ﷺ at the point in time. And when he entered onto the Prophet, he saw the Prophet was smiling. So Umar was surprised, and he said, I asked, oh Allah, oh President of Allah, what makes you smile? And this smile is like an unending smile. You have been smiling since I entered, and the smile did not end. What could have caused that? And he said, I smile at those women, that is his wives. Said they were chatting in front of me before you came in. But when they heard your voice, they all vanished. And that was the answer, and he kept smiling. So towards the end of the hadith, which I've not put there, Umar now have to call the wives, you women, so you are afraid of me. Whereas we start with the Prophet and you just relate any disrespectfully. Umar was saying out of that, because the moment they saw Umar, everybody kept quiet and they vanished. But when they are with the Prophet, they will be so free. They were relating very well. Umar was saying, who be unto all of you that you were there when I come around, you'll be afraid of me. But when you are with the Prophet, you will so realize that you even disrespect him. So that shows the level of relationship, the kindness and gentleness Islam had with them. Because if that had not been there, like Allah said in the Quran, if you had been stern, you had been necessarily harsh, they will have dispersed from you. Also, for them to revolve around you, for them to make him laugh, for them to be chatting around him freely, and that Umar, when Umar was coming, they had to leave because they wouldn't want Umar to see them doing that. Perhaps we think that they are going towards the extreme. That is one of the things that testifies to the position of the Prophet ﷺ and how he related with his wife. Another example was the issue of patience. Prophet ﷺ was very patient with his wives. That even when they do things, especially at the time they display some level of jealousy among themselves, and yet he would just be patient. He understood their jealousy and he knew that. There was a narration that Anas bin Malik narrated that when Rasulullah was with one of the wives and then went to the house of Aisha, so one of the wives now sent a bowl of food. We have some food in it. So Aisha deliberately just hit the hands of Prophet and the bowl fell down and broke. You can imagine what that could have been. If it had been another person, any one of us, you know how we would have reacted. But what does Islam do? He just bent it down, pick the two pieces, put them together, and also gather the food and place it there. And he said, yeah, come and eat. Mother, you are jealous, let us eat. At the end of the day, Brother Islam continued eating. And even the wife had no choice than to join him doing that. So that was the way Brother Islam led, despite the reaction, despite the act of jealousy that Aisha displayed. Brother Islam was not annoyed. And that's why he said he never at any point in time hit anybody in his life, including his wives. Another example was issue of consultation. What we know today, a lot of Muslims who are there, like there's always a misconception that they will tell that people carry around that if your wife advises you to do A, you must go and do B. If she advises you to do B, go and do A. Always do opposite of what your wife has advised. And some of them ascribed it to woman, which is a fabrication that is actually not true. Because Prophet Islam never did that. There are a lot of scenarios where Prophet Islam will consult his wife and get advice. At some point, he may not necessarily need their advice in some instances, because Allah is there to always guide you. But yet, he will still ask for their advice. And sometimes their advice will be the one that is rescuing him from scenario that he finds himself. And you can see this one clearly during the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when the Prophet Islam went to Mecca. They were about to go and do their Umrah in Mecca, and they were stopped at Hudaybiyah, and eventually there was a treaty that was signed that ordinarily on the face value, outwardly was unfavorable to the Muslims. The Muslims around Islam were annoyed that Islam signed such a thing. In fact, he even compromised writing his name as Rasulullah. Because when they were writing, said Muhammad Rasulullah, the Quraysh said, no, we don't know if you agree that you are Rasulullah, there wouldn't have been any problem with us. But what we know is Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. So write that. So Ali was the one writing. First Islam asked Ali, please raise your right for what Rasulullah. Ali said, no, I will not do that. I've written Rasulullah. Islam said, show me where it is. And he showed him, Islam used his hand to erase it. So the compromise was so huge. So the companions were not so happy. They were sad that this could have happened, and they were losing out when they had opportunity. So Islam said, well, we are not going to perform Umrah this year. What we are going to do is that here we are going to slaughter our ram, shave our head. So because we're already in a ram, we have the intention, but we're not going to go into Mecca. We slaughter our rams, shave our head, and go back. So he now gave the instruction to the companions. To his surprise, nobody responded. All of them were seated. Prophet Islam was telling them, go and do this. Nobody responded. So the Prophet ﷺ was confused, was dumbfounded, now sat down. So what did he do next? Almost all the companions were late. He didn't go to consult them. He went to his wife, Salama, and explained, this is my scenario. What should I do? And Salama said, don't worry. What you just need to do, don't speak to anybody. Don't talk to them again. Don't address them. Just go there, slaughter your ram, and then shave your head. And then see what will happen. Prophet Islam accepted. He went in there without speaking to anybody. He put his ram down and he slaughtered. The moment he finished slaughtering, his wife, Salama, was the one he helped him shave his head. So the companions were just looking at him, and when they saw, Prophet Islam was already slaughtering his own ram, and he's already shaving his head. All of them now responded, and they complied with the directive of Islam. So through who? Through the advice of Salama. So it shows that Prophet Islam at point in time usually consults with his wives, and that's a very clear example for us. Then also, he is always treating them wisely, even at the moment of anger, because he controls his emotions, the way he relates with them. So which shows the level of wisdom that he puts there and the level of calmness that is put in place, despite the fact that they were there. There was a scenario that happened between him and Aisha. In that scenario, there was an argument there. And he said, okay, if you don't agree with me, let us come and bring somebody to judge amongst us. Now, that's another lesson for us. That at times, everything may not end there. You may need to take counsel from other people. And which is what Brother Salam also did. He said, let's decide, who do we go to come and counsel us, to come and take a decision on what we do. And Brother Salam suggested Ubaidah bin Jarrah. Said, will you allow Ubaidah to come in and judge between us? Aisha said, no, that one, you will always judge against me, and you will always judge in favor of you. Will never go against you, so you will win. And he said, okay. What of rumors? I'm afraid of rumors. I can't stand rumors coming here. So don't call rumors. Okay. What of Abu Bakr, was our father? I said, okay, yes, I like that. I said, no problem. I'll go and take Abu Bakr. You can imagine that. It was him, asking his wife to come. So Ibn Islam brought him. And that scenario also extended at the point that they were having such issue that Abu Bakr came in. And Prophet Islam was supposed to explain. Said, yeah, explain. And Aisha said, okay, when Abu Bakr came in, oh yeah, you should talk. Who should talk first? Said, yeah, Prophet should talk first. But fear Allah when you are talking. You know, she was talking to Prophet Islam like that. I've actually had to tap her. And I said, I only asked you to come and solve the problem. I didn't ask you to come and beat my wife. And even ask Abu Bakr to go, we'll resolve it ourselves. So that tells you another way where Islam has relate with his wife. In the same way, there are some duties that Islam carry out in the home. It's always helping in the household, helping with household chores, helping with household duties. That's why Aisha, one of them, said, when he was asked about the manner of the prophet at home, what did she say? She said he was helping in doing the family duties. And when he hears the call for Adhan, for prayers, he will go out. So you will see him engage in the house. He doesn't sit down and leave it for the wife to engage in it. In another place, said he used to wash his clothes, milk his calf or hare, and serve himself without waiting for the wife to do that. In another place, said he used to sew his clothes, clean his shoes, and do what men generally do in the house. So that tells you how Islam ensured that he participated in the address. And even if you have issues with them and he wants to reprimand them, he never wake up using his hands. He never use eating anybody. The best or the strictest reprimand that he will give to you is aloofness. So when they have done something that is not happening, the greatest discipline the Prophet Islam would do is that he will abstain from them, he will stay aloof. There was a day he went out, staying in the mosque without coming into the house for days. That they had to call Abu Bakr Umar to come and appeal the Prophet Islam to come in. That is the best that I would do. So irrespective of what the scenario will have been. So these are some of it. And there are a lot of examples in the Bible of Islam that we can see, that we can turn to. But we have only mentioned some of them. So the major point there we are saying is that you can see life. So the idea is for us as well to learn more about the life of Islam, especially as it relates to us as there. There are so many books around that people have written, both in Arabic and English, that Muhammad Zawjan, Prophet, Rasul Zawjan, Prophet as a husband. And I'm sure the book has already been translated. You can read, you see so many other examples in the Bible of Islam. And this will assist us to know that no matter what happens, there's always a model in the life of Islam. So, inshallah, we'll stop here. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide us, especially those of us who are men, so that we can be as upright and as affectionate as Prophet Islam was. كل قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan, sir. Really been an interesting session with you. I believe one way or the other, everyone has picked some interesting lessons about how the Prophet Sallam is a model for us in being the best of men in our various homes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all best of men. We appreciate you, sir. Jazakumullah khairan. Without much ado, we'll go straight to the next session, which is the panel session. Here we're going to be having, like I said earlier, a panel of three erudite scholars who will be navigating through some of the questions that we have prepared, that we are also going to be having from our hand. Let me quickly take a moment to introduce our scholars in the house. First, we have on this panel our beloved Ahmad Sayi. Honorable Justice Ibrahim Ahmad Sayi is a Qadi, a judge of the Sharia Court of Appeal, Kwara State of Nigeria. Prior to his appointment as a judge, he was a legal practitioner and consultant of about 2 decades at the bar and a Qadi of the Independent Sharia Panel of Lagos State. He was the pioneer CEO of Clear Path Islamic Center, Lekki, Lagos, and he has authored a number of works, and he has to his credit several valuable and high-profile lectures and presentations. He has a great passion for impactful impartation and strong bias for Islamic law, especially the relevance and effective application of Islamic law within the context and dynamics of contemporary intricacies. Hence, he has a special interest in Islamic commercial law, fiqh ul-amalat, juristic exertion, ijtihad, basis of legal opinions, usul al-fiqh, philosophy, rationale and intendment of Islamic law, maqasid al-sharia, and Islamic procedural law, murafa'at. Justice Sayi is a life ambassador of peace, which was conferred to him by Legacy International Center, Accra, Ghana. He is a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award by African Update International Vaccine and Africa Achievers Forum, Accra, Ghana, and the National Humanitarian Icon. He has also received the National Humanitarian Icon Award by His Majesty, by Our Majesty Global Publication, Abuja, Nigeria. He also has to his merit several other numerous awards and certificates of merit. We are happy to have you on the call, sir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sir. You can hear us. We'd love you to say testing to the house.
Wassalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. The second panelist on today's panel is one of our lecturers who delivered lectures to us yesterday, and that is in the person of Dr. Sulaiman Ogumiwa. Permit me to also introduce him. Dr. Sulaiman Ogumiwa is a senior civil servant with 28 years of working experience with Lagos State government. He is currently director and head of Education Quality Assurance Services, Assurance Ministry of Education. He is a multiple award winner of the Outstanding Officer Award in the Office of Education Quality Assurance between 2012 and 2021. Dr. Gumiwa volunteers for M Solution Consulting International Limited as a lead counselor, where he excels at bringing together estranged couples and guiding intending couples towards a happy marriage. He has over 25 years of counseling practice, handling marriage, parenting, same, academic, career and vocational, as well as personal social issues. He has trained and certified over 200 marriage counselors across the world. He also provides educational consulting services for organizations and institutions in the areas of administration, management, assessment and evaluation, planning, training, and the creation of strategic plan documents. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, Education in Guidance and Counseling, and 2 master's degrees, one in Education Administration and another in Guidance and Counseling, all from the University of Paris. He earned his PhD in Education Administration and Planning from the University of Abuja with an emphasis on the implementation and practice of education quality assurance system. Dr. Gumiwa is the president of Complete Trust Cooperative Multipurpose Society. He is the chairman of the board of incorporated trustees of First Class Muslim Foundation. He is a fellow of the Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals and an associate member of National Institute of Training and Development. We are indeed happy to have you on the floor, sir. We would love you to sit testing to the house. Dr. Sulaiman Gumiwa, Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh, sir. If you can hear us.
Very well, I can hear you. Thank you for the citation. Thank you.
Yes, and our third panelist for today was also one of our guest speakers yesterday. Indeed, we enjoyed the session as well, and that is by name Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji. And as I introduced, Senior Lecturer of Islamic Studies at the prestigious Al-Hikmah University, institution's chief imam. He is an Islamic scholar, a public speaker, an author, a counselor, a brand influencer, and an entrepreneur. We are indeed happy to have you as our third panelist for today, Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji. Would love you to say testimony to the house, sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Indeed, we have a panel of erudite scholars, and I believe after our interaction with these excellent scholars, we would have no option or no choice than to, if we implement what we are going to be hearing, to become the best in our various homes, to have our homes transforming into what we be an abode of peace or even an abode of happiness. And if it were before, we'll get more happiness from the home at the end of the day. So we're going to be starting the session by having a brief introductory statement from each of our panel, starting with Justice Abdurrahim Ahmed Sayi. Just a 2-minute introductory statement before we begin to ask the question.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Once again, I say unto all participants, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My introductory note or remark would only be to particularly sensitize all participants, whether intending husbands or who are husbands already, because in Islam, there are certain things if gotten wrong at the beginning, there is still room for still adjusting and effecting the necessary correction, even while the act is ongoing. You know, and of course, it's about the sunnah of every successful Muslim that we must imbibe, you know, constant reappraisal and review of our positions with respect to the intention, particularly with which we have ventured into anything at all. What I like to remind us all is never to be looking at the issue of marriage as something purely social or maybe biological or something animalistic or in whatever other way, in the very common way that the same thing applies to humanity as a whole. No. With respect to a Muslim, marriage should, particularly from the onset, be viewed and defined as an act of worship. This will prevent us being whimsical in the conduct of ourselves in marriage. By that, we will do away with the sorts of arbitrariness that characterize most marriages, egocentrism, and all sorts of things that are really at the root of many marital problems. Once we believe that marriage, as said by the Prophet ﷺ, Man tazawwaja minkum faqad istakmala nisfa dini. Whoever is married among you has taken a bold step to fulfill as much as a whole half of his religious obligations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Holy Quran, Nisa'ukum a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Nisa'ukum harthul lakum fa'tu harthakum anna shaytum wa qaddimu li anfusikum wa taqullah. The point of emphasis here is qaddimu li anfusikum. Your women are your child. You may cultivate them as you wish, but Allah says, take advantage of the marital institution to put forth for yourself handsome, gigantic, monumental good deeds of righteousness that you hope to be weighty in your scale of hasanat, by which you hope that Allah casts smile on your face thereby when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If marriage were not ibadah, Allah wouldn't have said with respect to marriage, qaddimu li anfusikum. Put forth for yourself in the hereafter handsome deeds in which you nurture a high hope for reward. So if this foundation is well gotten, I want to believe that many of the things we want to build, a marriage foundation will be easy, so that the husband will see himself primarily responsible to Allah in his marriage, and will look at his wife just as a collateral beneficiary standing by to enjoy the dividends of duties which he owes to Allah. And the wife as well is also seeing herself responsible with respect to her marital obligations, primarily to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she discharges those duties with a view to earning the pleasure of Allah, and the husband just stands by at a corner to reap the dividends of duties which the wife discharges to Allah. I think with this foundation, many things will fall in line. And this is my opening remark. May Allah make that easy for us all to achieve, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. That's a wonderful one. And I believe we are all picking one or two things from the statements and a lot of other things we're going to be hearing. Jazakumullah khairan, sir. I'll go on quickly to Dr. Sulaiman Ogumeyowa. Can we please have your 2-minute introductory remark?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I want brothers on this call to realize that we are here for a very serious business. I want to tell you a lot of sacrifices that people are making to make this work. What I understand with marriage is any marriage that you see working, it is because the two spouses or one of them is working on the marriage so that it can work. If you listen to Barrister Sai, Justice Sai, you even see that his voice is shaking. He has not been feeling fine. He couldn't come on yesterday. He struggled to come on today, just for us to be able to benefit and understand that we are in this call together. We are in this movement together. A lot of complaints about men are, all over. They are painting us like we are not good. And the truth of the matter is, if you don't train them, you can't blame them. Women have so many opportunities to learn from one another, understand how things are going and how they can be best in their marriages. They are making efforts. We also want men to make efforts, and that is why we have come together. Dr. Lafiaji had to quickly take his shower and rush down to the office just because he wants to take the first lecture, because he has been told he would take the second lecture yesterday, and he's here today. My very good friend, Alhaji Sholate, was called just yesterday when we couldn't reach Justice Sai that, can you please prepare this for us? And look at his presentation this morning. And we have to make sacrifices. We have to make these marriages, our marriages work. We have to put every effort into it. And if you look at the life of the Prophet, there is nothing that we are experiencing that he did not experience. If he did not fail, he can never fail. We should not also fail. So let us put a lot of effort and do a lot of things that is going to make our Yawm al-Qiyamah a better one for us. My opening remark is just to appeal to us to be very open and take lessons and see how we can make our marriages better. Thank you.
Let's be very open, take lessons, and see how we can make our marriages become better. That's indeed a very wonderful closing statement, or the opening statement from Dr. Sulaiman Ogumeyowa. We'll move on to have the opening remark of Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji. We'll have the floor, sir. It's okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Please, I want to appeal that you pardon me. My voice is a bit shaky. I've been on admission since yesterday when I delivered the lecture. I'm just recuperating. So please pardon me if my voice is a bit shaky. May Allah restore our health. My opening statement will be to appeal to us to see our marriage as an act of ibadah. I quoted yesterday that Almighty Allah would always add the expression "wattaqullaha" even after admonishing us regarding our marriages. And you realize that Almighty Allah, who knows everyone and everything, admonish us in the Quran to treat our wives with love and care and with justice and fairness. He said, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, live with them with care and righteousness and affection. وَإِنْ كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ, and in case you detest their character, maybe there is something about them that you detest, that you did not like. The next thing is not to become harsh and hard and difficult and recalcitrant or divorce her, send her away. He said, فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Sometimes you detest a thing, but Almighty Allah will put so much blessings in it. So there is nothing wrong if the husband detests a character or some of the characters of his wife. But what is wrong is not understanding that you need to make certain sacrifices just to make the marriage work. Women can be difficult sometimes. I told us yesterday that there is nothing we experience that the Rasulullah never experienced with his wives. But the most important thing is for a man to see this as an act of ibadah. Take, for instance, if your daughter were this woman, would you chase her out of the house? Would you denounce her? Would you hate her for it? The answer would be probably no. So we need to work on them. The Prophet already told us their character, they are created from a crooked rib. They are ungrateful. It's part of their natural being. But, if we continue to see this as an act of worship that we cannot abandon, that we have to continue to manage, we have to continue to tolerate, we have to continue to understand, then pray to Almighty Allah to guide us through, I believe that it's going to work, inshallah. A brother mentioned yesterday that he thinks approaching a counselor is the way forward, but I disagree, honestly. I think that we need to open up time to time with ourselves through a program like this. We bottle up a whole lot of things that, make us behave sometimes like, cooking gas. At the end of the day, we explode. So if there is no forum like this where we can express our minds, talk to each other like men, exchange ideas, we may find it difficult to maintain our marriages. So I also want to encourage the organizer of this program to ensure that time to time we have a forum like this where we can talk to ourselves as men and see how best we can become in our homes, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. We want to wish you complete shifa, sir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you good health. Thank you. Despite the fact that you are still on sick bed, you have prioritized this session. And I hope that the participants are seeing this. Dr. Ogumi also mentioned earlier the fact that Honorable Justice Abraham Ahmed Sayi is also not feeling too well. But regardless of that, he still ensured that he's with us here. So a lot of sacrifices are going into these events. We should not just see it as an event that I paid for. So I'm just getting what I paid for. People are going the extra miles to ensure that we have working marriages. We become best men. We are able to relate to ourselves. This space as men, whether married or about to marry, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward our speakers, our panelists abundantly. And I'm just also being informed that Alhaji Abdulhamid Shulate was supposed to have, the earlier message I have, another session at 9, but as we speak, he's still with us, and that's another wonderful thing to realize. And definitely want to have him add his voice as part of the panelists. So I would love, he has taken a lecture earlier, so I would love if you can just have a 1-minute introductory session or introductory statements before I begin to ask the questions. Alhaji Abdulhamid Shulate, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir. I don't know if you can hear us. Alhaji Abdul Hamid Shilate. Would love you to have to join our panel session, and of course, like we have done with all other panelists, we're hoping to have an introductory statement from you.
To what other people said is that, like I said, marriage is an obligation. Once you are into it, like it's a contract. That's why Allah uses as a said act. So when you are going to do an act, you are doing a contract. And in Islam, when something is contract, it means they are binding on you to ensure that all the aspects of the contracts, all the details that are there are fulfilled. And because once you do that, that is when you get the value for it and be rewarded for it. And like I always say, al-Muslimuna la shurutin. The moment you have agreed to it and you have signed the contract, then you have a duty to make it work. So everything that will ensure that that contract is fulfilled is important for us. So same thing with our marriages. So we need to do extra work to ensure that we get it work, and then we're able to get it fulfilled according to the Prophet Islam, they expected from us to do it, and in line with the details of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that extra effort there, understanding is like the concept of being that I've entered into a contract, which I'm going to be questioned about at the end of the day. It makes a lot of things easier for us. And the other way to look at it is, once we remember, I think it's right to Abbas when Allah was talking about what will happen on the resurrection. Said, so it means on that day, everybody will have a responsibility. So there's the aspect of your partner, your spouse there. Everybody will stand on his own. Everybody wants to get to Al-Jannah. So you are looking for a way to gather a lot of things. So one of the things that will also assist us in getting that reward, ability to achieve that is through our marriages. So because it was, we see it as like an accountability, we are going to give account for it. So we don't want to be found wanting on that day. We don't want to lose points or virtues on that day. Because when the things are weighed, the scales is putting down, we want our balance to be tilted towards the good ones that deeds that we have done. So using this concept, inshallah, it also assist us in the light, put us in the right direction, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. We appreciate that wonderful statement, sir. One key point there is that marriage is a contract. It's a contract, and when you are in the contract, you want to do all you can, put in your best to ensure you have a profitable adventure at the end of the day. We appreciate all our panelists for the introductory statements, and I would like to put my first question to Justice Ibrahim Ahmed Sayi. We wanted to share with us in about 3 minutes what the core Islamic principles that guide successful marriages are.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. The core Islamic principles that guide successful marriage, I would like us to be holistic about it, and also to correct a trend which is even peculiar in my observation, even to Muslims that are informed. When I say informed, I mean informed Islamically. I would say principles that guide the Muslims can be of different facets. Usually, we can have at least 3, and maybe we can also have some sub. Principles that guide Muslims transcends legal principles. And this is the mistake that many parties to marriage make: over concentration, excessive emphasis on legalism, especially where the ideology too has also been impacted or corrupted, by some elements of westernization, where you now have the aspect of right and expectations and entitlement overemphasized, inordinately so heightened. And at the end of the day, what you discover is that people's expectations in marriages would not be that met. Legal principles are there in the Quran and Sunnah to guide and regulate, yes. But I would say that there are standards that are even superior to legality. And these are the spiritual standard principles, also of the Quran and Sunnah as well. And at the same time, I will say the moral principles. All these two must be adopted simultaneously because they all have ways of complementing one another. If you are too legalistic about marriage and what concerns you as a man are the rights of the husband over the wife, those are the aspects of the fake books that you see most of the men in marriages. And then you, especially if you read it up, some of, I'm just saying this very honestly, I am not out to maybe indict any of our great scholars, alayhim jami and rahmatullah. But you see, when you look at literature of scholars, expressly expressed, and you tend to see some kinds of scholastic inclinations which should be taken with caution, because each and every one of us, we are human. Hello?
We can
Hello?
hear
Are
you,
we
sir.
together?
We can hear you,
Okay.
sir.
Now, if for someone, for example, is taken too far by the tafsir of people like Al-Qurtubi on Al-Rijal Qawwamuna ala Nisa, and then you also want to implement to the letter, some of the, I would say, sort of maybe overemphasize rights, for men in marriage in that regard, things may be taken beyond bounds. You see, as a Muslim, what is most important is seeking the pleasure of Allah. And that in most cases is not tied to legality. The pleasure of Allah many a times lies in you sacrificing even that which you are entitled to legally. The pleasure of Allah is tied more to your ability to make sacrifices of your rights, to also endure and accommodate even excesses, infractions to your rights done to you by other people generally. And this thing is even more expected to a very higher degree in marriage. Excesses of your wives, her transgressions, her infractions, and not to be met with stiff penalty in assertion of the masculine authority or your position or authority as a man. No, to trade those legal rights sometimes for more valuable thing, for something that is more greater, and that is for pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can be more strategic. And of course as well, there are issues in marriage that they are just matters of muru'ah, being just a decent and responsible human being. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that to have a successful marriage, yes, we are to be guided by the legal principles as expounded in our fiqh books as related to marriage. But beyond those principles, let us be more focused primarily on what do I do to earn the pleasure of Allah. Look at how Allah has given us in the verse of Nushuz, فَإِذُوهُنَّ وَهَجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ, even وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, all those are processes. But compare that on one hand with the verse just alluded to earlier on by my brother, Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji, that وَإِذَا كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. See, one verse on one hand, conferring on you some authority to effect maybe some corrective measure, provided that the limit has not been exceeded. And another verse as well, telling you that even as much as you may not be able to help not finding things you may detest with them, that should rather be overlooked and be more focused on some other things that Allah may have had in stock for you in the same marriage. After all, the Messenger of Allah sallam, has given in the following words: Istawsu binisa'i khayra.
I think we lost your audio. We are unable to hear you, sir, if you can hear us.
Or repeatedly, because problem.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan, sir. We can't
Sorry
hear
about
you.
that.
Okay.
That was a distortion. I'm just rounding off. The Prophet sallam has said, "Istawsu binisa'i khayran." Take good counsel of mine, this good counsel of mine regarding your women. Innahunna khuliqna min ad-dal'i. They are created from the rib. Not just the rib, fa inna awaja dal'i a'la. The part of the rib that bears the sharpest curve is the uppermost of it. That is even more or less angular, so to say. Fa in ja'alta tuqimuhu kasarta. If you must straighten it at all costs, you end up breaking it. وَإِذَا تَرَكْتَهُ لَا يَزَالُ أَعْوَجًا. And if you leave it unstraightened, then it also remains so sharply curved like that. And you may also not enjoy it. What are we to understand from this hadith is that women are protected, they are immune whenever they exhibit things that are purely feminine in nature. When women exhibit feminine traits, it appears that it only shows that a man is not mature enough, even maybe not qualified to marry in the first place, if he dwells so much on the feminine traits of women, such that is that even creating problems. Who dwell so much. I know people have had enough of a right of obedience, duty of care. What more duty do we want to emphasize other than what Allah has summarized in wa'ashiru hunna bil ma'ruf wala ta'duluhunna? Forget about the tathabu bi ba'di ma ataytumuhunna. Those verses are loaded. Give them the best of treatment, the most, the most beautiful, kind of treatment while they are with you in matrimony, and let no harm ever emanate from you towards them. This is the basic, because when Allah says al-rijal qawwamuna ala nisa, this verse to me is a verse that has rather imposed responsibility than a verse that has conferred rights. Linguistically, when we say qama ala, the meaning is more in terms of duty of care, to take charge of the protection of the care, for certain things, to be responsible for the upkeep of another. And Allah has not said al-rijalu qa'imuna ala nisa. He has even used the siga that we call mubalaga, qawwamuna, meaning that the responsibility of men to women in marriage, especially in Islam, at least should maybe come next to the duty of every man, responsible man, to Allah, or maybe it can say to his two parents. After that, you are not dutiful, expected to be dutiful to anyone other than your spouse. And that's why the Prophet could beat his chest to have said, خيركم خيركم لأهله وأنا خيركم لأهلي. So the summary of my submission, and I like to pose this as a challenge to all men. Go and take stock. Put pen on paper. What are those things that if I remain committed to, I shall remain? I've not translated the hadith. The best of you is the best of you all to his household. And the messenger of Allah beats his chest, and asserted creditably enough and confidently enough that I am the best of you all to my household. So the challenge before all men, if we really want to follow the Sunnah, this is also part of being Ahlul Sunnah. I want to be like the Prophet ﷺ in the aspect of being the best of all men to his household. Then what are those things that are required? That which is material, that which is emotional, that which is social, in terms of all the things that make up for happiness of a woman, and by extension, happiness of a home. Then in that case, inshallah, we will be fulfilling the obligations of marriage. Don't forget that the essence of a man and a woman coming together, they are not for things that are cosmetic that we often dwell on. Allah has stated those reasons categorically. Ja'ala bainakum mawadda wa rahma. Let the whole, especially the aspect of rahma, because the scholars have divided this. Some ulama of the opinion that mawadda, love, is more feminine, and that rahma is more masculine. So you are a man in marriage because you can show mercy, compassion, by being more tolerant, by not being hard against your women, by having the shock absorber, enough shock absorber to tolerate her excesses, to cope as well with her inadequacies. That's why you are a man. Let's invest in this rahmah. And I want to believe if all that is done, all those legal rights and duties will just come automatically. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. That's indeed a wonderful response. So without much ado, I would just want to go to the next panelist that we have in the house. And that would be Dr. Sanusi Lapiajisa. I would want you to please take this question. What are some Islamic financial principles that can promote financial stability and reduce stress in Muslim marriages? Just about 3 minutes, sir.
Sorry, can I have that question again?
What are some Islamic financial principles? Some
financial
principles, yes, and advice that can promote financial stability and reduce stress in Muslim marriages.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yesterday, a question came about sharing of bills, and I did state very clearly that as far as the Sharia is concerned, the man is 100% responsible for the finances of his house. And this is based on clear verse of the Quran, such as Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa bima faddala Allahu ba'dahum 'ala ba'd wa bima anfaqu min amwalihim. Also, askinuhunna min haythu akantum min wujdikum, and also وَعَلَى الْمَوْلَى رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, among other things. So if this is the case, it means that the man, as the sole financier of his family, must first understand his own financial status and understand the kind of liabilities that he has to live with. So, and this would guide him to ensure that while providing for his family, he also thinks about some of the consequences of not living within his means. And I remember that I also quoted what President Buhari said, that everyone desires to live comfortably, but the most comfortable thing is to live within your means and damn the consequences. So as a result, number one is to prioritize your needs over your wants. Almighty Allah even told the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he should be moderate in his spending. I'm trying to recollect the verse now. ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد مذموما مخذولا. I guess that Almighty Allah said, "O Muhammad, do not be miserly and do not be spendthrift." So the man, as the sole financier of the family, must prioritize his needs. He must understand what the needs of his family are and what the wants are. Of course, our wives and our kids will always want almost everything, especially in an age of social media and peer influence, peer pressure, where they begin to demand things because they see other women or other children enjoying same. So you must understand that these things are the needs and these things are the wants, and then you do a scale of preference and put your needs above your wants. Number two thing is, just like I said yesterday, to also know when to adjust. Take, for instance, the situation we have in this country today, the skyrocketing rate of commodities in the market. What was hitherto bought for 5,000 is now probably 10, 15,000. We have probably 100%, 150% increase. So you must know when to adjust. I made it an example yesterday. You're living in a 3-bedroom apartment. Things have become difficult now. House rent have gone up. Your salary has not increased. So what do? There's nothing wrong in moving to a 2-bedroom apartment, adjusting. All you have to do, like I said yesterday, is to carry your family along. Let them realize that this is what obtains now. So you can no longer sustain what you were enjoying before. So if what you're eating before amount to, let's say, 50,000 naira in a month, and now because of the prices of commodities have become 85,000, and your salary can no longer take care of that, there's nothing wrong in adjusting your feeding habit, reducing certain things. Some of the things, probably you're eating basmati rice before, Chinese rice. There's nothing wrong in saying, look, we have to move to local rice. So it is also one of the things that we need to do. Then number three thing we also need to do in terms of finances in our homes is also to ensure that okay, I've talked about cutting down the expenses, prioritizing your needs. Okay. Yes. Yesterday, I also mentioned the issue of loan taking. I think it's important. Okay, thank you. I think it's important that as a sole financier of the family, we do not take loan or borrow money unless it is for major things. That we do not borrow for frivolities. We do not borrow for things that are not so important. And even when we're borrowing, we ensure that we take our families along so that we together adjust our lives. So taking loans, borrowing should not be for frivolous things. They have to be for things that are most important to us, like house rent, like a tuition fee of our children, like feeding, among other things. So these are just some of the things I can remember now. Thank you.
Jazakumullah khairan. I think wonderful points have been made there. Importantly, we should prioritize needs over wants. We should be moderate in our spending. We should take loan only with caution. Jazakumullah khairan. So I'll be moving on to Dr. Sulaiman Ogumewa now. Would love you to please share with us your thoughts on some practical ways that men can strengthen communication and intimacy within their marriages. Just about 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. Communication is the lifeline of any marriage. The moment communication breaks down, then the marriage is also on the verge of breaking down. So communication is something that we have to ensure that we maintain. And a lot of men, what I've observed over time is that we don't communicate our feeling. We do a lot of mind reading. She should know. She should know that when I'm coming home, I'll be hungry. She should know that it's been 2 or 3 days that we have had sex and we should have had another sex. she should know that I'm not feeling happy. No. I mean, you don't expect other people to read what is in your mind. Why don't you open your mouth and communicate? Now, if you are not the type that can communicate very freely, then why not schedule a regular time for your communication? Okay, you have a very tight schedule. Why don't you agree with your wife? Yeah, I think somebody said it yesterday that the woman want to talk. They want you to give them all the details about what happened to you from morning till night. Okay, and you don't have the time, you don't have the luxury of that. So always try to see if you can set aside a time dedicated for meaningful conversation where you can talk about your activities and things that are peculiar to the two of you. And you also have to practice what is called active listening. It was also said yesterday, let me put it in another perspective. There are 3 ways that people listen. Practice active listening. Some people, they listen to speak. That is, you are listening to somebody and you're already taking note of your response to that person. Your wife said that what you do some things like you go to your parents and you just ignore me when we get there. And the next thing you are writing down is, okay, so when we went to your own parents, you did not ignore me, Abi. I will remind you, in 1974, you did this, in 19 this. So you now start listing all the time that she has also ignored you. No. Rather, you should listen to understand, you listen to learn. Listen to understand how somebody, I mean, what you are doing is affecting the other person, how the person is feeling. Try to understand. So listen to understand and listen to learn. You, even from an idiot, you can learn. From things that are not directed towards you, you can learn. So you listen to people to learn 1 or 2 things from them. And one thing that's also critical in communication is there must be open and honest communication. Share your thoughts, your feeling, your desire with your spouse, and be very clear about it. And you have to be emotionally intelligent. This is when you develop your own self-awareness, when you practice empathy, you put yourself in other people's shoes, and you also learn how to resolve small crises. I'm looking forward to, us coming together to discuss about conflict, real conflict, and also talking about negotiations, And finally, like it has been said, for us to have better communication, you need to understand that there's a love language that goes along with this, and that is showing appreciation. In fact, when you just show appreciation, it just looks like, oh, this is the best communication. Any other thing will be taken for granted. If you look at the feedback that we got this morning about you just writing a note to your wife, you'll see the kind of response that you get. Even if you have offended your wife, she will just forget about it. So appreciation is something that is also very good when it comes to communication. And when you talk about intimacy, you have not been communicating with your wife since morning, and you get home now, you are saying you want to have intimacy. I mean, you didn't prepare the ground. Why don't you send a message in the morning that, hey, hello, Umu, or hello, babe, I'm missing you. Said, you are missing me, seriously? Said, yes. Then after about another 4 hours, you send another message. You just prepare her mind so that she can also feel what you are feeling and also make some preparation for that.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful response. I think I would now go back to Justice Abdurrahim to take on the next question that we have here. Talking about how men are supposed to treat their women. We see that the Prophet ﷺ emphasized in many ways, or in many of the statements, the fact that Muslim husbands need to treat their wives with respect and love. We would love you to help us put this into perspective. How can men translate this teaching of the Prophet ﷺ into everyday actions.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I think I like to attempt at driving home the point by the verse I had earlier quoted, so that we can just analyze that verse and see exactly what Allah is expecting from us as men. The verse reads, Nisa ukum harthun lakum. Your women are your tilth. They are just like your garden. A cultivable land you can just enter into and cultivate. So the first question I'd like to ask here is, if our women are our tilth, then what then are the men? I think the most reasonable answer in the circumstances to conclude that an ideal husband from the perspective of this verse of the Quran must be a farmer husband. Because if our women are guarding their farmlands, then the person cultivating, whose duty and responsibility is to be committed to cultivating that farmland, that person mustn't be called any other name other than a farmer. Now, let's as well look at what is the psychology of a farmer regarding his farm, whether a farmer involved in crop production, or even those that raise, livestock. What is the psychology? You see that an ideal farmer lives essentially for his farm. I mean, the kind of dominance, the kind of attention that the farm gets in the heart of a farmer, nothing else gets it. In fact, an ideal farmer translates virtually everything that happens to him in the light of his farm. If it's too windy, he thinks of the effects of that excessive wind on his farm. If it's dry, there is a drought, the farmer is concerned of the effect of that on his farm. If it's raining excessively, it's also another cause of concern for the farm. If it's too sunny, meaning even if the farmer dreams, most of the dreams of an ideal farmer is always about what happens with respect to his farm. So psychologically, an ideal husband is expected to hold the affair of his woman to his heart, to his chest, tightly. Now, if Allah says, Fatu harsakum anna shaitum, because I see most of our men, and if you see some of our brothers, I don't know whether Dr. Lafia is in that category, they have all kind of stylistic way, of interpreting Fatu harsakum anna shaitum. But what comes first for the farmer? Is it the khidma, the services, or the harvest? Yes, women are to be explored in all ramifications. Whatever we can think of in terms of exploration, that is, of course, part of the main duties and essence, of marriage. But if you look at the farmer, your wife is not a virgin land. It's not a jungle. Your wife, ideally, is supposed to be a cleared land that has been prepared, that has been nurtured, that has been conditioned at the instance of the husband for cultivation. And all these preliminary activities really they matter for you to have a successful agricultural endeavor. You clear the land, you prepare the land. In some instances, you need to fortify the land. And then, even having planted into the garden, your work has just begun. Because that is when you've even had a stake in the land. So it now remains taking care of the land, warding off all kinds of intrusions, whether in terms of animal pests or in terms of human thieves. You have to protect it. Then at the last stage, you now come to, harvest. But many husbands just want to harvest without having paid the prior price. Don't forget, those women are farmland. So you need to do what a farmer has to do to make a virgin land, convert it to an arable land, suitable for cultivation. Having also planted, you must invest. That is the planting. You must also take time to also, monitor whatever you have done and also protect whatever is your interest. I mean, make your wife a happy woman. I mean, make your home a heaven for him, for her rather. Make your home a heaven and a haven for her rather, so that when you also now come for Fatu Harsakum and Nashitum, you will be coming as a farmer who have also paid, you had either paid the price. Fatu Harsakum and Nashitum. That's what I can give, as a kind of summary. Dutifulness, commitment. And that's why when Allah was saying Qawwamuna ala nisa, he didn't say Qawimuna ala nisa, because the commitment is not an ordinary level. It can also be challenging, and it is not also without some trials also. But all this, just like all that the farmer goes through a lot before the farmer now has the stock to present to the market that this is my harvest for the year I want to. So any man who is not ready to pay the price, to invest in the happiness of his woman, to consciously invest in fostering and breeding love in his home, should rather not venture into marriage at all. And you see, this, to me, women are what they are. They are not even responsible for themselves. But the man in marriage is not only responsible for himself, he is also responsible as well, even for his wife. Sometimes we determine how our wives behave, how they react, or what we have even turned them into over time. And let's even assume that your wife is such that is just imbued with some negative traits, that she's just about the most difficult woman to handle. It is also part of your duty as well to convert her to what you can enjoy. Take her either like that crooked rib, or like that farmland you just want to make productive for yourself. So if for any reason your farmland has a problem, you know what to do as a farmer. Either to leave it to fallow for a while and regain its nutrients and come back to it, or you find another maybe organic or inorganic means of fertilizing the land. Okay, if that is the problem is that of water and there is no natural source, then you have to irrigate the land so that you can get what you want. That is how it is also expected of a woman as well. Help your women solve even those identified problems with their personalities that are not making you, really enjoy them. It is also part of your duty to be responsible for them. In this way, then you'll be open. You'll be kind-hearted. You'll be responsible. You do that even with passion. When you spend, and let me also say this, and I think this should also be emphasized. You see, from the introduction I made, laying the foundation that Muslims should primarily see marriage as another means to serve Allah. It's an avenue for ibadah, but the ibadah to be performed here may not just be, the normal, the usual or conventional way of devoting ourselves, spiritually to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This mindset is very important, so that the more challenging you are finding your woman in marriage, then the more opportunities as well that has opened for you to serve Allah and to earn reward as well with Allah. So, and in that case, even when you are showing patience to a woman who has issues, I'm not saying maybe moodiness, yes, disobedience, jealousy, having to repeat the same thing over and over, and all those things. These are part of the reasons why we as men are expected to invest in.
I believe we have indeed taken note of that wonderful analogy. It's a whole, I mean, lot of new perspective to understanding that verse. Okay, so using the farmers and farm analogy that Justice has used to illustrate the explanation. So it's a new dimension, and of course, like he has told us, it should be the same way the farmer would be with his farm, service before harvest. We don't expect to harvest what we have not nurtured at the end of the day. Jazakumullah khairan, sir. We hope that they will rejoin the call in the shortest possible time. While we move on to the next question. So talking about helping our women, I'm directing this question to Dr. Samisila Piaji. Talking about helping our women, we believe this goes beyond, I mean, household help. So what can you say, or how can men support their wives' ambitions and personal growth? Should women even have the, I mean, once they're married, should they have ambitions? Should they have targets? Should they have career plans? And how can their men be of support to them in this regard? Dr. Sanisla Fiadisa.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Of course, yes. Women, just like men, also have ambitions and dreams and the desire to also grow. Because like I do tell women whenever they come to me for pre-marriage counseling, that you must have two lives, that's your personal life and your marital life. Because we have seen situations whereby a woman's marital life ends either through divorce or through the death of her husband, and her personal life becomes shattered because while she was married, she didn't make any attempts to develop a personal life. So, and we have seen that even the wives of the best of Allah's creations, talking about the prophets and his companions, all have their personal lives even while living with their husbands. We know Khadija bint Khuwailid, our mother Khadija, had a business which the Prophet was a part of before the marriage, and even after the marriage, the business continued. There are also wives of people like Abdurrahman bin Auf, who were, into business. Some of their wives were nurses attending to sick people, and especially during the wars, they were the ones attending to the injured among the Muslims, to the extent that there was a particular companion whose wife was very rich, to the extent that she was even giving zakat from her wealth. So, as husbands, we should not see our wives' growth and career as a threat to ours, especially if they are done within the limits of the Sharia. One thing we have to ensure, like our teacher, Honorable Justice Abdurrahim Ahmad Sa'i, as rightly mentioned, is that we have the responsibility of a farmer who has to look after his farm and must ensure that nothing harmful comes to his farm. So as husbands, we owe the ace to ensure that whatever career path our wives have chosen do not conflict, one, with the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and two, with their responsibilities as our wives and mothers of our kids. So we should support them in every way, financially, morally, among other things. So this is just it, that women should also be allowed to have a career, so long as they do not conflict the Sharia and their roles as wives in the homes, and that as husbands, we must also support them in our own way. I do say that if a wife, ordinarily wives should become richer than their husbands, ordinarily, because like our teacher also mentioned, a woman does not have any financial responsibility to anyone. Her husband is the sole financier of the woman. So it means that if she's earning something, she doesn't have to spend it except for reasons best known to her. but the man still has to spend on his wife, even if the wife earns more than the husband. And as a result of this, it makes the wife to become richer than the husband. So, and if this is the case, then sorry, I'm in class. Sorry. Then if this is the case, then it would mean that the husband should even be happy that the wife is richer than him. Well, unless for a few situations where such women may become, I don't know, but some women become intoxicated by their wealth, they become arrogant. But if this is not the case, I don't think it's a threat. I will even be happy to see that my wife has more money than me, because women are so kind that sometimes they just generally become compassionate, and they just buy things for you that you don't even expect them to do. And then sometimes they even leave the burdens off your shoulders without telling you, not necessarily telling you. And I am also, Alhamdulillah, I'll be happy to say that the Hadith of Prophet ﷺ, which he said that أن تدع ورثتك أغنياء خير من أن تدعهم عالة يتكففون الناس. That you leave your heirs rich and comfortable financially is better than to leave them poor, and needy, seeking what is in the hands of the people. So I'll be happy to say, well, Alhamdulillah, if I die today, may Allah protect them. At least they have something that they would live on, pending when probably they make another choice for themselves. So Allah Ta'ala alam.
Jazakallah khair, sir. That's a wonderful response. And like I said, or like I've been saying, we are definitely picking one or two key lessons from our lovely and respectable panelists. I mean, sometimes, like Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji has just rounded up in his last response, he mentioned sometimes have issues with their wife taking up jobs. I mean, moving to get career and then having some form of personal growth that can put them in a position where they become richer. So these issues often bring about conflicts in some marriages, and generally, we believe conflict is part of human life and even marriages. So I would love Dr. Sulaiman Ogunmiwa to please help us talk about, in very brief time, dispute resolution, conflict resolution in marriage. How can Muslim men approach conflict with their wives in line with Islamic guidance?
One thing that I know for sure is that conflict is something that is constant in marriage, and there is no marriage without conflict. Even from the presentation we had this morning, we saw that the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, the marriage of the Prophet to his wife had some element of conflict, to the extent that even in Surah At-Tahrim, Allah had to mention that if the wives of the Prophet are not careful, he will direct that he should divorce all of them and he will replace them. So conflict is constant in marriage. So how do we now approach conflict? It's a totally different ballgame. The very strong advice for those who are yet to go into marriage is that you must have a way that you want to resolve your conflicts. For example, it's always good to have both of you agreeing to a third party. Who should we discuss our conflict with? And you choose somebody. You saw this example in the life of Muhammad ﷺ when he was discussing with Aisha that who should we call to come and help us resolve this matter. And at the end of the day, Aisha had to, concede that, okay, yes, let Abu Bakr be the one to come and intervene. So when you have this ahead, it makes it very easy for you to resolve conflict that you cannot handle on your own. Let me also emphasize that conflicts are best resolved within the marriage before the third party. It's only when you cannot resolve within yourself that you get a third party. Now, in trying to resolve conflict within yourself, I want to mention some few points. Number one is that you must, at the point of conflicts, remain calm and composed. Don't become a crazy, mad person out of the conflict. No, be composed and remain calm. Try to control your emotion and approach the situation with very clear mind. In Quran 4, verse 19, we have 3 of these lessons there. Also, in the same Quranic verse, we have to communicate effectively. How do you communicate your conflict? How do you identify the real source of conflict? Now, you can't be talking and crying at the same time. No, if you want to cry, it's fine, you can cry. Wipe your tears and communicate clearly what you think is the cause of the conflict and what is the impact of the conflict. We are not only talking about the conflict, we are also talking about the impact of the conflicts on you or on any other party. And during the process of resolving your conflict, talking about your conflict, you must avoid anger and aggression. This is also clearly stated in Quran 4, verse 19. And if you need to apologize, you apologize. If you need to seek forgiveness from Allah, you seek forgiveness from Allah. Quran 4, verse 19 also emphasizes this, that at the point in time that you now wish, okay, you have seen what the problem is. Whoever that needs to seek forgiveness, you seek forgiveness. Whoever that needs to apologize, should apologize. However, if these issues are now beyond the two of you, you can't handle it again, then it is best that you seek a third party to help you to intervene intervene in the matter. And please avoid gaslighting, avoid stonewalling, avoid what do you say? When you give silent attitude, there's an issue, you're not talking about it, you just say, just forget it, and you want to move on. We have to remember that conflict resolution in Islam emphasizes mutual respect. It emphasizes mutual understanding and mercy. And if you follow some of these steps that I've enumerated, I think it's going to help us to be able to resolve our conflict within ourselves, and also when we have to contact an external person that we both agree to. Wallahu
alam. Sir. Time is fast spent. I think at this point in time, we have some more questions. These questions are a result of what men are, going through in their marriages, what we have observed about various marriages and all. However, due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take all. I think at this point in time, I would love that our respectable panelists do give us a closing remark of 2 minutes each, so that we can proceed to the next session. I want to stress that those other questions that we're able to take at this point, or even those that we may not be able to take when we raise our hands to ask questions, the platform that has been created will be explored to give responses to some of these questions. So we may have recorded answers to some of these questions that will be shared to those platforms, or some text response that will be shared to that platform as well. So let us be rest assured that MSCI will walk through ensuring all questions that have been asked yesterday, the ones that we have not covered now, and even the ones that we may have in our mind that probably the time would not allow us to take, we will definitely provide answers to them as time goes by in the nearest days after this session. We do not intend to have ourselves kept in this session for a long time. It's a virtual session, and oftentimes the shorter the better. Okay, so I think at this point, I would love that our panelists give a closing remark. I would love to start with Dr. Sanusi Lafiaji at this time to give his closing remark of about 2 minutes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah bi ni'matihi tatimmu salihat. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the success of this webinar. I pray that it impact positively on our marriages and make us better husbands. Let us always have it at the back of our mind that Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kafa bil mari ithman an yudayya man yaqut." It is enough a sin for a man to abandon the responsibilities of people.